There are moments in life when the weight of our burdens seems far too heavy, when the road ahead appears impossible, and when hope feels like a fragile thread ready to snap. Yet, it is precisely in those moments that God draws nearest. His hand does not always reveal itself in thunder and lightning, nor in the sudden removal of our trials. More often, it whispers in the quiet places of the soul and in the ordinary steps of our journey. If you are wondering whether the impossible in your life is being met with divine strength, consider these signs that God is indeed helping you. Sign 1. A strength beyond your own. There comes a point when your strength should have failed you. The night was too long, the sorrow too sharp, the battle too fierce, and yet somehow you endured. When the human heart is drained, when the mind cries out that it cannot go another step, and yet the step is taken, that is not merely endurance, it is grace. That strength is not your own. It is God's quiet power lending you breath and fortitude. It is the first evidence that He is at work, sustaining you where you should have collapsed, enabling you to do the impossible. Sign 2. A deep peace amid chaos. The world swirls with uncertainty. Bills are due, relationships strain, the body aches, and storms rise. Yet within you there is an inexplicable calm, not denial, not blindness to reality, but a deep assurance that somehow all shall be well. This peace is not natural, it is supernatural. It is God whispering that you are not abandoned, that the chaos does not reign, and that the storm cannot overthrow the one who walks upon the waters. Peace that defies logic is the second sign that God is actively carrying you through. Sign 3. Doors opening where walls once stood. You may have stood before barriers that seemed immovable. A situation with no solution, a future with no path forward, a need with no provision in sight. Yet, as days unfolded, the walls began to crack, and what once seemed sealed has opened like a door you never noticed before. Opportunities arise unexpectedly, help arrives from unlikely places, answers emerge where there were none. This is not mere coincidence. It is God aligning the impossible into the possible, orchestrating the unseen in your favor. Sign 4. A change within your desires. There is something more subtle, yet profound. Your heart begins to want what it once resisted. Where bitterness held sway, forgiveness now finds root. Where selfish ambition once thrived, a longing for higher things now grows. Where fear dominated, courage begins to whisper. God's help does not merely change circumstances. It transforms the very heart of the one who trusts Him. When you find yourself being reshaped, when your desires begin to bend toward what is good, true, and eternal, know that His hand is upon you. Sign 5. The right people at the right time. No journey is walked alone. When God is helping you, He often sends others to bear part of the weight. A timely word, an unexpected friend, a mentor, a companion. These are not random. They are answers to prayers you may not have spoken aloud. People who appear in seasons of need are instruments in the hands of God, evidence that He knows your burdens and is sending help in human form. When the right people arrive at the right time, it is a sign that you are not left to fight alone. Beloved, these 5 signs are not grand fireworks or dramatic spectacles. They are gentle threads woven into your daily existence, proof that God is helping you even now. And when His help comes, the impossible is no longer an obstacle, but an invitation to walk in a strength not your own, to live in a peace not of this world, to see doors open where walls once stood, to be transformed from within, and to be carried by hands, both divine and human, set in your path. God strengthens you beyond your natural ability when you should have fallen. There are times in life when the weight of your struggles presses down so heavily that you wonder how much more you can endure. Your mind grows weary, your body weakens, and your spirit feels crushed under the burden of trial after trial. You may even tell yourself that you have reached your breaking point, that surely this is the end of your strength. And yet, somehow, you take another step. You wake up for another day. You continue, though you thought you could not. This is not coincidence, nor is it mere human resilience. It is a sign that God Himself is helping you by giving you strength beyond your own. Human strength has its limit. We are finite creatures, and our endurance runs dry. But there is a power greater than ours that begins where ours ends, and when you feel that strength carrying you beyond your breaking point, you are experiencing the evidence of divine help in your life. Think back to moments when exhaustion should have conquered you. Perhaps it was an illness that drained your body, or grief that hollowed your heart, or responsibilities that demanded more than you could possibly give. At such times, everything in you whispers surrender. You tell yourself that you cannot make it through another hour, yet you look back and see that you did endure, that you survived when by all logic you should have collapsed. That is the quiet miracle of God's strength at work. He does not always lift the burden away, but He infuses you with the endurance to carry what seemed unbearable. His strength does not always appear as sudden energy or physical power, but often as the small, steady ability to take the next step when you thought you could not. When you compare what you expected of yourself with what you actually endured, you begin to see the truth. Left to yourself, you would have faltered long ago. The fire of trial would have consumed you, the mountain of responsibility would have crushed you, the river of sorrow would have swept you away. But instead, you find yourself still standing, still moving forward. This is no accident. It is a clear sign that God is sustaining you with a strength not your own. The human will alone is not enough to explain why you are still pressing onward. There is a divine hand holding you, and that hand has carried you farther than you ever thought you could go. This strength beyond yourself often comes in unexpected ways. Sometimes it is as simple as the ability to breathe calmly in the middle of panic, or the ability to smile through tears. Other times it is a sudden clarity in the midst of confusion, or the courage to speak when you felt voiceless, or the patience to wait when you wanted to give up. Each of these is not a small thing. It is the evidence of God strengthening your inner being. We tend to think of strength as something dramatic, but the deepest strength is often unseen. It is the resilience of a heart that refuses to despair, the quiet persistence of faith that holds on even when circumstances scream otherwise. Consider also how this divine strength can surprise you. You may look back on days of great suffering and wonder how you survived them. You may even feel astonished at yourself, saying, "I do not know how I made it through." The truth is, you did not make it through alone. You were being upheld by a power greater than you realized at the time. The very fact that you cannot explain your endurance is the proof that God was working behind the scenes, enabling you to do what seemed impossible. If you could explain it by your own determination or skill, it would not be extraordinary. But when your endurance has no explanation except divine help, you know that God has been with you. This strength is not given to make you boast in yourself, but to teach you where true power lies. When you are weak, you discover that your weakness becomes the very place where God's strength can shine the brightest. Your limits become His opportunities. Your emptiness becomes the space where He fills you. It is in the breaking of human strength that the beauty of divine help is revealed most clearly. When you stop relying on yourself and realize that the strength you are experiencing is beyond your natural capacity, you begin to see the truth. God is not watching from a distance. He is directly sustaining you. This kind of help is not always felt in the moment. Many times you will only recognize it afterward. During the storm, you may feel that you are barely surviving, clinging to hope by the thinnest thread. But when the storm passes and you reflect, you will realize that the thread never snapped. You will see that you endured because you were held by hands stronger than your own. God's help is often more visible in hindsight, as you look back and marvel at what you lived through. Sometimes God allows you to come to the end of yourself so that you will discover the beginning of Him. When you exhaust your own strength and cry out in desperation, you are positioned to receive His. And when His strength comes, it carries you in ways you never expected. It is not always dramatic deliverance, but steady support. Not always the removal of the trial, but the infusion of grace to walk through it. This is how you know He is helping you, when the impossible burden does not crush you, when the overwhelming storm does not drown you, when the fiery trial does not consume you, and when, against all expectation, you find yourself still standing. God provides peace, open doors, inner transformation, and the right people at the right time. When God steps into the life of a person, His presence does not only show itself in one way, but in many. His help unfolds in layers, each one pointing to His care and guidance. One of the clearest ways this is seen is through peace that comes when it should not exist, doors that open when you thought they were sealed forever, a quiet change deep within your own heart, and the presence of people sent at just the right time to strengthen you. These are not random events. They are deliberate signs that God is moving on your behalf, carrying you toward the place you need to be, and shaping you into the person He intends you to become. There is a peace that cannot be explained by circumstances. Normally, when storms rage around you, when your future looks uncertain, when problems mount with no solution in sight, fear should overtake you. Anxiety should consume your thoughts and steal your rest. Yet, in the middle of this, you suddenly sense calm. The chaos has not ended, but within you there is stillness. That stillness is not human in origin. It comes from beyond yourself. It is as if the storm cannot penetrate the center of your being, because there the presence of God dwells. This peace does not mean you are blind to the difficulties. You see them clearly, yet you also know, deep down, that you are not abandoned. Something within you insists that all shall be well even when nothing outward seems well. That unshakable calm is a sign of God's help, reminding you that He governs what you cannot control, and that He is nearer than your fears. In addition to peace, there are moments when life brings you to a wall, and all human reasoning says there is no way forward. Every door you try to open remains locked. Every path you consider is blocked. You begin to believe that this is the end, that you have nowhere to go. And then, without warning, a door opens. It may not be the door you expected, or even the one you had been knocking on, but it opens in perfect timing. An opportunity presents itself, a way is made, a solution arises. The timing and the alignment are too precise to be called coincidence. It is God working behind the scenes, unlocking what was hidden, arranging what was impossible. When this happens, you realize that you are not walking in a random sequence of events, but in a carefully designed plan. Each door that opens when all seemed closed is a reminder that God is actively moving you toward His purpose. Yet the help of God does not only affect what happens around you, it also transforms what happens within you. Circumstances may be slow to change, but inside your heart, change begins to take place. Desires that once chained you lose their hold. The bitterness that once defined you begins to dissolve. Where anger once lived, forgiveness takes root. Where selfishness once drove your actions, compassion begins to lead. Where fear once dictated your steps, courage starts to whisper new directions. This inner transformation is one of the clearest signs that God is helping you. For you cannot, by your own strength, so easily rewire the depths of your being. True change of the heart is something only God can bring about. You discover that He is not only arranging the circumstances of your life, but reshaping your very soul, preparing you to live in a higher way. The desires you once fought against begin to align with what is good, pure, and eternal. This quiet but profound transformation is a sure sign of divine work within you, and then there are the people. God rarely intends for you to walk your journey alone. When His help is near, He often sends it through others. Sometimes it is a stranger who says just the right word at the right moment. Sometimes it is a friend who shows up when you were silently hoping for someone to understand. Sometimes it is a mentor, a guide, or even a child whose innocence awakens something new in your heart. These encounters are not accidental. They are part of God's design. He places people in your path who lift your burden, even if only for a moment, reminding you that you are not forgotten. The timing of their arrival is often so exact that you cannot dismiss it as random chance. You realize that God has heard the cries you never spoke aloud, and He answers them by sending someone to walk with you. The right people at the right time are one of His most tender ways of showing His care taken together. These signs, peace in the storm, open doors where there were none, a heart that is being reshaped, and the arrival of people who bring strength, form a pattern. That pattern points unmistakably to the reality that you are not navigating life alone. You are being helped, guided, strengthened, and reshaped by a hand greater than yours. The very things that seem ordinary in the moment become extraordinary when you see them for what they truly are. Divine fingerprints scattered across the canvas of your life. And the more you begin to recognize them, the more clearly you will understand that God's help is not a distant idea but a present reality, quietly yet powerfully unfolding every day around you, and within you God's help turns the impossible into possible by working in both your heart and circumstances. When you face the impossible, everything in you says it cannot be done. Your reason argues against it, your strength fails before it, and your hope begins to collapse beneath the weight of what stands in front of you. Yet God's help enters in precisely at that place where impossibility reigns, and suddenly what was unthinkable begins to unfold. This is not because you discover hidden power within yourself, or because circumstances shift in your favor by chance. It is because the hand of God moves both within you and around you. His help works in two dimensions at once, forming the inner life of the heart and orchestrating the outward circumstances of the world. It is this twofold action that turns the impossible into the possible inside of you. There are fears that whisper constantly, doubts that argue loudly, desires that pull in directions you know will harm you, and wounds that convince you that you will never be whole. Left on your own, these forces would master you. They would dictate your life and shape your destiny. But when God begins to help you, something shifts. Fear no longer paralyzes you in the same way. Doubt may still speak, but its voice loses its power to control. Wounds still ache, but they begin to heal in places you thought would never mend. You find yourself changing, not because you forced yourself into a new pattern, but because God is reshaping you from the inside out. This inner transformation is one of the clearest signs that impossibility is being overcome. For the hardest battle is not the one fought outside of you, but the one within. When the chains of despair and defeat begin to break, when courage and faith start to rise in a heart that once trembled, that is God's help in its purest form at the same time, the circumstances around you begin to shift in ways you could never have planned. Paths that seemed blocked begin to clear. Opportunities you never imagined suddenly appear. Even setbacks are revealed later to have been necessary detours guiding you to the right place. What you thought was an ending proves to be a beginning. This is not simply luck or coincidence. It is evidence that a greater wisdom is ordering the steps of your life. God's hand works invisibly, aligning events, people, and timing in ways that you could not orchestrate even with all the effort in the world. He opens doors that human effort could not budge, and He closes doors that would have led you into harm. When you see such alignment, when you look back and realize how the pieces fit together, you recognize that God's help has been guiding you toward possibilities that once seemed unreachable. The combination of these two, the change within and the movement without, reveals the true nature of divine help. God does not only carry you through external battles, nor does he only focus on reshaping your inner world. He works on both fronts at once. He strengthens your heart so that you can walk into situations you once feared, and at the same time, he prepares those very situations to be fertile ground for your growth. He teaches you to trust him in places where your own logic tells you to despair, and then he proves that trust justified by arranging the outcome in ways you could not have foreseen. This union of the inner and the outer is how the impossible becomes possible. It is not simply that circumstances improve, nor that you suddenly feel stronger. It is that both your heart and your path are being prepared in harmony by a wisdom higher than your own. This truth becomes clearer when you consider how often God uses what appears to be defeat as the very soil of victory. Many times, what seemed like failure was in fact the necessary foundation for a greater outcome. The job you lost made way for an opportunity that better fit your purpose. The relationship that broke apart spared you from greater harm and opened your heart to deeper love. The dream that seemed delayed was being refined until the time was right. In each of these, God was not ignoring you in your impossibility. He was actively working through it. He was arranging the story so that impossibility itself became the doorway into something greater. This is how his help operates, turning what appears to be the end into the very beginning of a new chapter. Another aspect of this divine help is the way it draws out abilities and strengths in you that you never knew existed. Under normal circumstances, you would never have discovered them. But when faced with the impossible, and when God's help is upon you, you find yourself doing things you never imagined you could do. Words of wisdom flow from your lips when once you had no answers. Acts of courage are taken when once you trembled. Perseverance sustains you when once you would have quit. This is not because you suddenly became more capable, but because God's Spirit works through your weakness to reveal strength that belongs to him. The impossible situation becomes the stage upon which his power is displayed. Both in you and through you, the great beauty of this is that it allows you to see life differently. Instead of being crushed by the impossible, you begin to see it as the very place where God intends to work most powerfully. What once filled you with despair now becomes an opportunity to witness divine intervention. Each obstacle is no longer merely a threat, but an invitation to experience help beyond your own resources. Each impossibility is not a wall to stop you, but a canvas upon which God paints the proof of his presence. In this way, the very things that seemed most hopeless become the strongest evidence of his care. This is why when God is helping you, the impossible is transformed, not because you are capable of overcoming it in your own strength, but because he is simultaneously remaking your heart and reshaping your circumstances. He is showing you that your weakness is the perfect place for his strength to dwell, and your impossibility is the perfect setting for his possibility to be revealed. When both your inner world and the outer events of your life begin to align in ways that you cannot explain, you can be sure that divine help is present, and that what once seemed beyond reach is now unfolding before your very eyes.